All right. Hello, everybody. I believe we're live streaming. We'll have somebody check that out in a minute, but it's been 2 weeks since we've been here. 2 weeks, and we've been kind of reminiscing here early before we started the class tonight. But it's good to have you with us. Those of you that are listening through Power Faith Radio, it is good to have you here with us tonight. Please, if you would, just go ahead and hit that notification bell there on the Power Faith Radio to let us know that you're watching. And if you'll see if you're listening on your phones on the app that we've posted, you can talk to us, and you can also follow the link to the Facebook page and find out how to come into the Zoom room. But it's good to have you through Power Faith Radio. If you're watching this on YouTube tonight, we thank you so much. Maybe somebody shared the recording of this video or recording of other video. If you'll just hit that notification bell while you're there, or subscribe first, then hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time we go live or a new video goes up. And as always, you can go over to A Simple Walk Facebook page, and there you can get all the links for the radio, for the YouTube, and for the Zoom room. And come on over to the Zoom room and be live with us. Hello, Terry. How you doing?
Doing good.
Okay. You want to greet everybody in the Zoom room tonight, Terry? There's a whole bunch of us in here tonight.
Oh, I'm telling you what. People were just, I guess, getting ready for all this cold weather that's about to, snow's about to hit us. Of course, y'all are used to it,
My wife and daughter went to the one of the local grocery stores. I'm not going to give a plug or nothing, but went to one of the local grocery stores, and I've passed two or three of them from work or running around today, and I mean, they are packed out. They are packed out.
I know they're the little community group I'm a member of on Facebook for our little area we live in. Somebody posted that our local Walmart was already about out of bread, and I saw that today at work, and I was, I'm going to be honest with you. I find that's just stupid because, I mean, within a few days, it's going to be about 40 degrees and it's all be gone. And, even if you didn't get out to Walmart to get you a loaf of bread, you will make it a couple of days with some snow. It's not going to, it's not like I don't think they're anticipating in 1993 where we had that blizzard here that knocked everything down for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But when this is just a snowstorm coming through, and I'll be honest with you, I hope we get 6 to 8 inches here, like they're saying. That's not much. We used to get that every winter when I grew up in South Central Kentucky, and ponds would freeze solid, and we played all day outside in it. Now, half-inch comes, and they're closing government buildings and banks. Yeah. It's crazy down here.
My grandmother used to say, I hope it snows knee-deep to a tall Indian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the snow.
No offense, Veronica. No offense, Veronica.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but down here, it's not really the snow that's the issue. What we have down here is the black ice.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that. You get on these roads, and there's just a micro film of ice on the road. You can't see it. You can't tell it's black. It blends in with the asphalt, and you'll be running down through it, and all of a sudden you're looking at your tail lights as you're going down.
Yeah.
At the road.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we've got a lot of country roads down here that doesn't get prepped and stuff on it and all that. So they keep the school buses off and things. So there is a lot of warnings for this area because it's not really set up to have that kind of weather. But when I was a kid, 6 to 8 inches, that was just getting started. That was generally, we would have that by the second, third week after going back to school from Christmas break. And then we'd be out another couple of weeks because of the snow. And we'd like,
Yeah.
All righty. Okay. Scotty's down in the engine room. Glad to see him here. And Ronald and Bob and Veronica. Veronica, where are you at now?
You're muted.
You're muted.
I'm in Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, you need to go over to Tybee Island.
I'm going there. I'm going to be here for another 9 days.
Okay. So, a good another place to go over there is, if you like history, is Fort Pulaski.
Oh, I saw that on the list. Yeah.
They've got a I guess it's a photograph of the photograph, but they've got the a picture of the earliest photo taken of baseball played on American soil during the Civil War. There, it was taken there. It's the oldest picture of playing baseball on American soil as it was in that fort. It's really kind of cool. It'd be good to go out there and just go around and read the history of that fort. Robert E. Lee, when he was a young man in the Federal Army, he actually surveyed the island when he was like 19 for the fort to be built. So it's kind of really got some cool history over there. And if you get a chance, go over to the Mighty Eighth Museum. You would probably enjoy it. They've got a whole section just on women in the military in World War II who flew the planes to the bases and all that kind of stuff. They got a big section in there for the women in the military during World War II.
Okay, cool.
It's if you like, I know you kind of like history, but that's another really good place to go to. All right, now that I'm done advertising for Savannah for Veronica. Welcome everyone. Glad you can join us. It's been 2 weeks. We were hoping it wouldn't be 3. I don't know where you're living, but there is a really nasty flu kind of bug. It's running. It's gone through our whole dealership. Everybody has been sick with it, and it knocks you down for about 4 or 5 days. It's up in Middle Tennessee where my daughter and them live. It's running through up there. My grandbaby's had it, and it's a pretty rough flu that's hitting this time of year. And so I felt Saturday night it started getting in my throat, and that's the reason why my voice is a little bit different tonight. I've been fighting it all week long. So, praise God that I haven't gotten sick so far, other than just some cough and just dry throat. But we'll get through it all together. And North Georgia down there is probably getting hit as well, because it's hit the Chattanooga area wide open down here. So if you get it, take your fluids and just stay inside and keep yourself well. Don't go to work like people. Maybe we have people coming to work sick, and that's what happened. We had about 4 or 5 people. Oh, I got to go to work. We didn't know they were sick, and then all of a sudden, everybody's got it. This is a rough one. It doesn't. It comes out and gets you. Anyhow, Scotty, are you about ready?
I am. I was doing okay till y'all start talking about coughing. Now it doesn't have to put a cough.
I know I passed along that frog. It's down here in Chattanooga. I'm throwing it up there towards you.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, real quick. And guys, I don't mean, because Scotty and I, believe it or not, we don't really get to talk a whole lot through the week stuff because he works 20 hours a day.
Yeah, just about.
In 9 days, and 9-10 days a week. So he
wish I got paid that way, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. He's a very busy man. Okay. I heard of a restaurant. It's more of a fast food place. It's actually based out of Wisconsin. It looks like y'all have got one there in Maryville. Culliver's.
What is it?
Culliver's. Have you been there? It's like a Dairy Queen, but it's from Wisconsin.
Are you mean Culver's?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a Culver's here.
Okay. Andrew was telling me about it last Sunday. And that's when he said, he messaged me. He said, "There's one over there near Scotty." I said, "Oh, we're going to have to go." He said, their fish is out of this world.
That's what I was going to tell you. That's what, so here we are giving them a plug. They need to.
I'm sorry, guys,
no,
but
you're good.
Like I said, I don't get to talk Scotty much. And I just have to remember Andrew told me there was a place up near him that I needed to go check.
So they have a
mostly
milkshake.
Up around Wisconsin and Minnesota.
They have a milkshake that's called Concrete Mixer. And so it's my wife and daughter go over there often. They get food. They're always, yeah.
Okay, so now we know. See, we got the chicken house down here. Now we're going to come up there and go there with y'all.
Yeah. And I will tell you this: it's busy all the time. It's busy all the time. So okay.
Well, thank you for your time, guys.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scotty.
All right. Well, before I get started on our Sadaka list tonight, Veronica, I need to ask you, how's the second book coming?
Not as fast as I was hoping.
Okay. That's okay. I know it's gonna. I felt it was gonna be not a harder one, but a more. Is it a harder one?
It's a harder one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a harder one.
Well, we know you're a successful author. We know it'll get done. And so you've been doing this book tour all over the place. So
Thank you.
We're looking for it to come out. So, all right. And her first book is Simply Noahide. And maybe Bob can put that up over there. Bob. Maybe Ronald. I looked up and I saw Ronald's picture and Bob's name. So there it is. Terry's got it loaded up there. And I think Bob is Bob, look. Bob, there it is. There it is. So you are becoming a household name, Veronica. So I've looked at your.
I have to tell you, I was on this Zoom call with Rabbi Laser Brody, and he always mentions it when I'm on there.
Okay. Oh, great. I feel so privileged and blessed to have Veronica Port in our Zoom classes. So all right, I'm gonna get on our Sadaka time tonight. So and I feel privileged and blessed for all of you to be here and us to have time to come together. We always like to start off with our Terry and I's main teacher, and it's Pesach and Shira Sherbo. They live in Sfat, Israel. And then also, I got a lot of names on here, so I'm going to have to I bunched them all up. Rabbi Michael Skoback is on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, Betty Given is on our Sadaka list tonight. And we still have Fred Lee Rawls on ours. Anybody talk to Fred? Is he doing any better? Okay.
He's not really posted much here lately either. He generally posts quite a bit.
Yeah. So we'll have to check up on him. Also, Nadine Akins is on our Sadaka list tonight. And Dave Logan is on our Sadaka list tonight. And let me draw me a line so I'll know how far I got down. Jeremy Kibbe is still on our Sadaka list tonight. Get that in there. And then Chrissy Seaton is on our Sadaka list also this week, and we'll be keeping her on there for a while. William and Tina Lyons is on our Sadaka list. They always tell us, that's my employer and his wife, by the way, and they always say, hey, add us to the list. And then Leah Parker is on our Sadaka list tonight. Leah Parker. And Ronald Dickman and sister. I always have to write it as sister because I cannot say her name. So this is where I turn it over to Ronald. And I say, Ronald, how you doing? And then tell us how your sister's doing.
I'm doing pretty good at the moment. Not 100%, but firing up enough not to be in too much pain. My sister, there are still at loose ends, other than thinking it's cross messages from the nervous system. But yeah, she's still suffering a hell of a lot. So yeah, that's Diane. Yeah.
Tell us her name again, Ronald.
Diane Bankier.
Okay, thank you so much, Ronald. So we're going to keep her on the Sadaka list.
Miss Diane.
Huh?
Miss Diane.
Miss Diane. I could just
there you go. You can say that.
I can say Miss Diane. Yeah. So, all right. Also, Pamela Steffi is on our Sadaka list tonight. And Stephen Dunshire. Did I get that right? Does anybody know if I think I pronounced
it? Dunshire.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's a lot better. I haven't spoken to him this week. I haven't had a chance. Been pretty busy. But I think he's doing a lot better. He's back at work anyway, so
great. Also, Tom Massengill is on our Sadaka list tonight, and Thomas Schaus, he's in the hospital, and so he's usually in our Zoom room. But Thomas Schaus is on our Sadaka list. Also, Emuela Asher is on our Sadaka list. Somebody always sends in funds for them, and Veronica Port. Somebody always sends in $1 for each one of them, but we put an extra one in tonight for Thomas Schaus. So you keep him in your prayers. He's in the hospital. Wendell and Mary Parsons were given Thanksgiving and Sadaka for them tonight. and Marshall Warwick were given tzedakah for Warwick Marshall. I see my dyslexia kicked in right there, and I read his name backwards. It's Warwick Marshall on our tzedakah list tonight. And also Roger Davis is on our tzedakah list tonight. And on our blessed memory tzedakah list, we have Roger Given on our blessed memory tzedakah list. Now, did I miss anybody? Did anybody in the Zoom room, have y'all give me a name that I missed tonight, or did I get everything?
You can put my sister on the blessed memory list. It was her birthday yesterday, and she died a few years ago.
Okay, give me your sister's name.
Kathleen
Okay.
Dickman, same as mine.
Okay. She's on our blessed memory tzedakah list tonight. May this go for her merit. Would you help us pray tonight, everybody? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For we know that you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, are you about ready to get started tonight? Well, you know what I should add for you, Terry, because you just mentioned you was having some issues, so we're going to put Sadak in there for you, Terry.
Appreciate it.
So, okay.
Well, Scotty, is there anything? I know we've been out for a couple of weeks. Has there been anything that's come in that's over the last couple of weeks, over the last few things that we've?
No, I've had some conversations with some people, but nothing. The majority of it was conversations of clarification. And of course, I just sent them to some past videos that we have done. And they text back and said, I found my answer. Thank you so much. Or clarification. It really wasn't asking questions about, well, what do you do with this and what do you do with that, or things of that nature. But they just wanted some clarification, and I sent them back and found the video and sent it to them. And so we're all good.
Sounds good.
All right. All right.
Well, we're going to continue on with our little mini, what I'm going to call our little mini series. It's the third part, really, of a 4-part series that we're doing. This is coming from Rabbi Sachs' book, To Heal a Fractured World, The Ethics of Responsibility, out of the chapter, I believe it's, let's see here. Yeah, it was chapter 10 of his book. And I've kind of titled our series after one of the statements that he makes in there. It says, with freedom is born responsibility. And we've talked about Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel was the last time we were together. And tonight, as he puts it, we're going to look at Act 3, Noah the flood. And all of this is in the very, early parts of the book of Genesis. Rabbi Sachs is showing how God, with the human race, was developing the aspect of being a responsible human. And it's very important. See, we've been discussing what started all of this was when we looked at Genesis 6:12, and it says, and where the Creator told Noah, it says, and they corrupted their way upon the earth. And in the Hebrew, it's called it's darko haaretz. They corrupted their way upon the earth. And so I began to ask the question: well, if they corrupted their way, then what would the way be if it was not corrupted? What would they have been doing if they were doing it right? And so we've been looking at that over the last month and a half, and it's led us to this aspect of responsibility and what we can learn from these 4 very important early events in human history that the Creator had Moses record for us in his Holy Torah in the book of Genesis. And These things seem simple, not super spiritual, yet it's so important that we learn these lessons, because in the aspects of responsibility, just to recap real quick, let me fall back over here. With Adam and Eve, they denied personal responsibility. With Cain and Abel, Cain denied moral responsibility. And though these things seem simple, when they weren't being lived according to the Creator's will, Adam and Eve was banished from the garden. Cain committed the first murder. And tonight we're going to look at Noah the flood. And we can see how very important things like this is. And I'll be honest with you, I don't, the things I listen and look at, and I see the subjects that are being covered by religious leaders, the things that would cause us to live, or the ways that would cause us to live the way that would have been right for that generation of the flood, that would have stopped man from being destroyed, that whole generation. These things are not being discussed. They're not being talked about. They're just not, because it doesn't draw the crowds. People don't want, what do we want to hear about responsibility for? I want something to shout amen about. Run the aisles, jump a few pews, shout hallelujah. You don't get hallelujahs from studying the denial of personal responsibility or moral responsibility. Yet these are the very things, because of the lack of them, brought disaster. And however you want to look at it, yes, it was disaster when man was kicked out of the garden. It was disaster when Cain committed murder. That's how important really these are. And Scotty and I hope that we can share this, and someone grabs a hold of this and starts, I found this little book in a thrift store the other day. Love it. And it's called QBQ, Practicing Personal Accountability at Work and in Life. The question behind the question, QBQ. What to really ask yourself to eliminate blame, complaining, and procrastination. Just a little bit of book. I picked it up for $1. And I opened it up while I was at the thrift store. I was hoping to get this read before tonight, but just the way work and everybody being sick, and I've been having to pull in and fill in places, I haven't really. A lot of times, time I get home in the afternoon, my wife and I will watch one of our shows while we're eating, and boom, we're in bed. We're asleep early. But one of the things right here on the opening page of this book that I read when I was in the thrift store, it opens up. It says, from a billboard towering, and this was written in I think 2004. From a billboard towering over a Houston freeway loomed this question: whatever happened to personal responsibility? And I'm like, okay, I'm studying that right now. Didn't take me. I didn't read anything else. Put it in my little buggy, and I picked up a couple of books from that little thrift store that kind of hit home with a lot of my studies. And yes, it's important to get some information, study some blogs, some websites, some books on responsibility, on what it means to be, accountable and living an upright life. Because even the Ramban, the great Torah sage, Rabbi Ben Nachmanides, sorry, my throat's dry, but his commentary on the flood, he said they didn't need a prophet; they already had it within them to know how to fix what was messed up. God didn't have to send some fancy prophet warning and threatening. They knew what was wrong within them. And if we went to Jonah and Nineveh, we already see that. Yeah, he sent a prophet there to tell them they were going to be destroyed, but the prophet didn't deliver the message of what they needed to fix. You know, in the book of Jonah, who delivered the message of what they needed to fix? Was their king, not the prophet. The prophet just came there to tell them they were about to be destroyed. That's all his message was. It wasn't what to fix. They knew within themselves what to do, and they did it. And so that's the reason why this stuff is that important, because in every area that destruction came upon man, leaving the garden, the flood, Nineveh, Sodom and Gomorrah, every one of them, in my studies thus far, at the base was the deterioration of human responsibility and accountability for yourself, for your neighbors, for your community. It's the base thing. When that began to deteriorate, the society deteriorated, and then it led to the greater sins. The greater sins isn't what caused the problem. The problem was what led to the greater sins. And this path leads, the path that the generation of the flood took led to their destruction, began with being dishonest, not responsible. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. Well, I want to do it my way, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. My morals are my morals. I don't care what the society thinks. I don't have to be responsible for the whole society. That was Cain. As that we've been learning. So tonight we're gonna look at Act 3, the flood. Rabbi Sachs goes on and says, and at any time, read something, we discuss something, let Scotty know. Send him the questions. Scotty, this is what this is for. We just stop and take our time, discuss whatever we need to. Act 3 brings us to Noah and the flood. The case of Noah is one of the strangest in the Bible. And you're going to see we're going to go through some stuff that's not really pretty at Noah, but because we're looking at Noah now from the aspect of responsibility. So when we go through some of this stuff, it's rough. We're looking at it through the aspect of responsibility. We are introduced to him in the terms of unrivaled praise. He is righteous, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God, yet the last glimpse we have of him is unforgettable and tragic. Genesis 9 and 20 says, Noah, a man of the soil, began planting a vineyard. He drank some of the wine. He became drunk and lay naked inside of his tent. When Ham, father of Canaan, saw his father naked, he told his two brothers outside. So Shem and Japheth took a cloak and put it over their shoulders, walked backwards and covered up their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they did not see their father's nakedness. Noah, the hero of humanity, has become Noah, the embarrassment to his children. Noah, the hero of humanity, now has become the embarrassment of his children. Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge. Noah drank of the fruit of the vine, the tree of oblivion, but of not knowing. Adam and Eve were naked and ashamed, but yet Noah is naked and unashamed. It is his two sons who are ashamed to look at him. They were too ashamed to look at him. The moral ambiguity of Noah is already subtle, signaled in the announcement of his birth. Lamech, his father, calls him Noah, saying, this one will bring us relief. Yananak menu. From our work and from our hard labor that has come upon us because of God's curse upon the ground. Genesis 5:29. There is something not quite right here, Rabbi Sachs says. The root Nachem, Nun Het Mem, those are three Hebrew letters of his name, does not yield the name Noah, but Menachem. The name Noah comes from the word to rest, complex. Resonances are being set up. Complex resonances are being set up. Noah is the man who rested when he should have acted. For when disaster threatened the world, he saves himself and his family and no one else. The biblical text also contains a wordplay lost in translation. It's one thing I love about Hebrew. When you start studying, you learn Hebrew, you start studying the Torah in its original language, you will start seeing things that English translation or whatever, Spanish translation, whatever translation that you might read, there's things that are hidden because of translation. Some things cannot be translated. There are pictures in the Hebrew that is hidden and forever lost when it's in translation. That's why there's a lot of religious beliefs that are based on translation. And when you learn the truth behind it, you see the fallacies of some of these belief systems because they're based on a translation and a man's interpretation of a translation. And so it's what he's mentioning here. He says the biblical text also contains a wordplay lost in translations. Noah's Hebrew name, the two letters, Nun, Hek, Noach. That's how it's pronounced, Noach, with a guttural sound, is exactly reversed of the word Hain. Het Nun, Hain. Same two letters, but reversed, which means grace and favor. A key word in the story, Noah found favor in the eyes of God, and it's a study of itself too. I've done some research on that, and it's very interesting. Maybe one night we'll just go through that one verse 8, Genesis 6:8. Noah's grace is ambivalent. His life, a reversal. Most significantly, the word used by Lamech at Noah's birth, Nun Het Mem, or Nachman, reappears later in the story with the opposite meaning to that which Lamech intended. When God saw that man had done much evil on the earth and that his thoughts and inclinations were always evil, he regretted. The Hebrew word he regretted there is Nachem. Nachem. That he had made man and that he was grieved to his very heart. Genesis 6:6. Nachem turns out to be a contronym, a word that has two opposite meanings. Noah does bring relief from man's work, but it is the release found in death. Not only did Noah fail to lift, not only did Noah fail to lift God's curse from the ground, but he lived through the worst curse of all. Noah's greatness was also his weakness. Noah's rest, or Noah stood still, by contrast. Now we're looking at Abraham. Abraham begins his service of God by moving in the Parsha Lecha, to leave his father's house. leaving home and traveling to a distant land. Noah's gift was that living through a time of widespread evil, he was not affected by it. He was unmoved, but he also unable to grow. The Torah sages heard in the phrase righteous in his generation a subtle criticism relative to his generation. He was righteous, but in absolute terms, he may not have been. What was Noah's failure? According to the classic Torah scholars, told that told that there would be a flood and that he would build an ark. He busied himself in the labor. The text goes out of the way to emphasize his obedience, stating no less than 3 times that Noah did all exactly as God had commanded him. That's praiseworthy. Throughout the whole of the narrative, the warning of the deluge, the flood, the building of the ark, the gathering of the animals, the beginning of the rain, Noah says nothing. The silence, in contrast with the dialogues of Adam and Cain have with God, is unmistakable. See, we have Adam talking with God about the situation he was in. Cain was talking to God about the situation he was in. Noah was quiet. Now this is very important here. Noah's failure is that righteousness in himself, he has no impact on his contemporaries. Noah's failure is this. He was righteous within himself, but that righteousness did not impact the community around him. He does not engage with them, rebuke them, or urge them to mend their ways. Nor does he pray for them, like Abraham prayed for Sodom, strangers, wicked men, wicked women, wicked children. He does not pray for them, nor does he question God's justice of the flood. Remember when we talked about Abraham and how he questioned God in his decision? That even in the Hebrew, it was kind of like in modern day, like, ho, wait a minute here. Ho, dude, stop. Let's talk about this first. It's kind of what Abraham did in his prayer. As Abraham was later to do for the people of the cities of the plain. In Hebrew tradition, judged him unfavorably. Noah, the sages says, walked with God, whereas Abraham walked ahead of God. Walked ahead of me, says the God of Abraham, and be wholehearted. In the Hebrew folklore, Noah became exotic impelts, a righteous man in a fur coat. This was a slang term that the Hebrew sages put on Noah, that he was a righteous man in a fur coat. There are 2 ways of keeping warm on a cold night: buying a fur coat and lighting a fire. Buying a fur coat keeps yourself warm. Lighting a fire, you keep others warm. Noah, the righteous man, fails to exercise collective responsibility. So, see, first we have denying responsibility, and then we have the denying of moral responsibility through Cain. Now, through Noah, we come to the exercise of denying collective responsibility. You cannot survive while the rest of the world drowns and still survive. You cannot survive while the rest of the world drowns and still survive. And we have an example of what this means. After the Holocaust, the phenomenon was given a name. It's called survivor's guilt. Noah is the first intimation in the scripture that an individual's righteousness is not enough. We learn from Noah that an individual's righteousness is not enough. You may not be silent while others suffer. Do not stand idly by the blood of your brother. The Hebrew scriptures commands later in Leviticus. How can I stand and watch disaster befall my people? Pleads Esther to the king in Esther 8. The moral is to live with and for others, sharing their responsibility, participating in their suffering, protesting their wrongs, and arguing their case. Let me read that again. To be moral is to live with and for others, sharing their responsibility, participating in their sufferings, protesting their wrongs, and arguing their case. So we see here that in all the situations that we've talked about, the flood, Nineveh, Sodom and Gomorrah, to be moral is to live with others. In every one of those situations, you'll see where that deteriorated, where everybody began to live for themselves. The moral enterprise is essentially social. The moral enterprise is essentially social. Maimonides, one of the great Torah scholars, noted that the individual is prior to society. One could imagine, he says, a completely isolated individual alone on a desert island in communion with God. Such an individual would have no need of moral virtue and no possibility of exercising it. But once we are in society, we are cast with or against our will into a moral situation. Rabbi Sachs says, once we are in a society, we are now cast with or against our will into a moral situation, to live in a community, to live in a town, to live in a neighborhood, to be a part of a family, to be a part of a marriage. Once the one becomes two and the two becomes more, you are now in a moral situation. Rabbi Sachs says, accepting Aristotle's definition of man as a social animal, he says that rules of right and wrong are essential because of the differences between human beings and their need to cooperate if they are to form communities. Law, though not part of nature, enters into what is natural. Law, that which is not part of nature, enters into what that is natural. Noah, who saves himself and his family by building the ark against a flood of rain, is the opposite of Joseph, who saves an entire region by building storehouses against the lack of rain. Noah's ark contrasts with the ark in which Moses was saved as a child. The Hebrew word for the ark, which in Moses and in Noah's case is teva. And the same in both stories. Moses, who 3 times in his earlier years intervenes when he sees injustice, is an antitype of Noah. These resonances are not accidental. They are part of the Torah's tightly structured moral narrative. Let me say that again. These narratives that we are reading about are part of the Torah's tightly structured moral narrative. They are Noah's examples exemplifies the truth that responsibility extends beyond oneself. It is not good that man should be alone. We are part of a society, sharing its rewards when it does well, its guilt when it does wrong. Noah fails in the test of collective responsibility. One who saves only himself, even himself, he does not save. Go ahead, Scotty. That's the end of Act 3. So it's now this act, Noah and the flood. Like I said, Adam and Eve, denial of personal responsibility. Cain and Abel was the denial of moral responsibility. Noah and the flood was the rejection or the failure. Actually, it's better, not necessarily he didn't reject it, but he failed. The failure of collective responsibility.
So we got an interesting conversation going on, and I was texting it when you said, "Go ahead, Scotty."
Oh, sorry.
So no, we're good. We'll just. So you mentioned something a few minutes ago about a lot of times people want to blame their actions on an outside force or person. It's their fault. I didn't do it. It's their fault. I wouldn't have done it. Here's what I was kind of talking. I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't put that person in my life. I wouldn't have. I had control of that. Well, a lot of people like to say the devil made me do it, or I'm not. I'm not. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not that good of a person. I could not control my actions because Satan influenced me. It's getting rubber meeting the road here for a minute. So
you're right. He may have influenced, he may have tempted, but he didn't make the decision to follow the temptation.
Exactly. Now I know we've discussed this before in the past, and this about, Cain had a choice. He didn't have to do what he did.
No. And we can, like I said, we'll get into that when we
okay.
kind of start going through some of the earlier passages of Genesis, when we look at the text themselves and learn from the text themselves.
So we are going that direction. We're going to be going that direction here.
Yeah.
Before we get through with this,
what we can do is we got one more act here. And since we're kind of talking about this, we'll next week, God willing, we'll finish up with the Tower of Babel. And
okay.
It's not, I don't think it's that long, I believe. It's interesting. And I was glad to go through that. It's been a long time since I've studied the Tower of Babel. No, it's actually kind of long. It's actually probably the longest part of those.
Okay.
we'll hopefully we'll get some of this. I may be able to cut out because it is quite lengthy, but if we want to, if everybody desires, when we finish this act 4 with the Tower of Babel, if we want to just start looking at Genesis and kind of go through Genesis right there up through a few chapters there, and take several weeks, a month or better, and slowly go through these, because we're going to learn it. We'll be repeating some of this stuff, but also there's other aspects learned there as well. We're looking at the issue of responsibility. There's some other topics that we learn as well.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Scott.
No, that's if we're going to cover that topic, I'd rather leave some people on a cliffhanger so they can come back, and I'm going to write these down that they're talking about. And okay.
I don't know if you want to cover. I mean, we can cover a little bit tonight. It doesn't matter if we do a repeat, but
No, it's basically discussing. Well, I'm just trying to word this correctly. Terry, I was born in sin. I was born imperfect. I was born with the original sin base in my body. and
Yeah, we will definitely
my
be getting into those things because
okay,
that's not what the Torah teaches, but that's what someone who made dogmas based on translations with bad interpretations.
yeah. So I know that's going to take a little bit to go through, and
Yeah, we will cover some of it because we're going to go through these passages real slowly that many of us have never known what they really said. We were
Right.
told what they meant by people who don't know what they mean because they don't know the Hebrew text in the historical understanding. And when I say historical, it goes back 3,400 years.
So Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist. Man, that's a big word.
Yeah.
A leading astrophysicist. Years ago, I heard this saying that he said, and I've just every time I use it, I use it sometimes when I'm teaching people or something. The problem with society, and I'm going to use the word society here. He doesn't use this word, but I'm going to use the word society. The problem with society today is they know enough about a subject to think they're right, but not enough about that subject to know when they're wrong.
I had an employer to tell me something very similar. When I first started doing heating and air, and I'll be honest with you, I don't agree with what this man did and what he said. I've remembered it now for 30 plus something years. And actually, I have done the opposite of what he did with me because it's not correct. And he did his is because he didn't want somebody coming along and learning and going out and starting their own business on stuff he taught them. Some people are just selfish like that, and then some people are selfish because that's what they do. But he told me he would teach me enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, that's and wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when I eventually went to work for a larger company and eventually worked up myself to where I was a team leader, ran my own installation crew, putting in residential heat and air systems from scratch, from a stack of 4x8 sheet metal till hitting the switch box and turning the unit on and listening to that compressor come on. It's what I did. When I had helpers that would come in like myself and learn from the ground up, from dragging tools under the floor and handing the boss 10 snips, to I'd be teaching them how to wire a unit up. The more I taught my helpers, the less I had to do. Not that I didn't want to do more, but it took pressure off me. If I was busy doing something important, I could look at Joe and say, hey, go pull that thermostat and put that thermostat wire and put that thermostat on for me. Wire it up. I didn't want to teach him enough to be dangerous. I wanted him to teach enough that where we could get done, make a good paycheck, and get out of there and go to the next job. I wanted to teach him enough to where I didn't have to stand over his shoulder to make sure that when the inspector comes, something failed and I had to go back on a callback. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a similar thing that I used for years when my wife and I was in evangelistic things. And this statement I'm about to make got me in trouble more times than one. But my job is to get you where you don't need me.
You know what? And our teacher told you and I the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. My job is to get you where you don't need me. And that's like I've told my children when my children were little, I always told them my goal is for you to be greater than I ever thought I could be. And I look now and I hear people, and I'm trying to be humble at this. I hear people talking about my children and how they've succeeded and how their lives are just, and so I just say, it was thank the Creator for that. But I always told my children using this. Well, we're about to get into something here, Terry, so I might as well go ahead and spit it out. My grandmother told me, and then I've seen this in little memes on Facebook. Be careful what you say to your children today, because it will become their inner voice tomorrow. my children, I'm going to use John for instance, my youngest son. I think Terry, you've met John. I come home from work one day. John was about 12 years old, and he'd mowed some people's yard and traded for this old Ford Falcon. I think it was like a 62 Ford Falcon. It was a rust bucket. It was awful. Had it parked in the front yard. I said, son, what are you going to do that? He ain't got to drive. What are you going to do that?
He's 12 years old. What's he going to do with a car?
He said, I'm going to pull the motor and transmission out of it. You can do it, son. I got confidence in you. I didn't say, get that thing out of the yard. I said, you can do it. About a week went by and I come home from work and there was another, that car was gone and the motor and transmission was sitting out in the yard. He did this by himself. He fixed he put a come along in a tree. He pulled the motor and transmission, had it sitting in the yard. Next thing I knew, there was another Ford Falcon that didn't have a motor and transmission in it. And I said, son, what are you going to do that? He said, I'm going to put that motor and transmission in that car. My mind is telling me this is not going to happen because I don't do that. I can't even, so I hire the oil to be changed in my car. Or I get him to do it. So, so the next thing I knew, a couple of days passed and that motor and transmission was in that car. Now there was something wrong with the transmission. It wasn't shifting right. And he was driving it up and down the road. So he said,
12 years old.
12 years old. He said, I'm going to pull that transmission out of that car and rebuild it.
All my days, I've seen the insides of those puppies.
I said, son, you can do it. I come home and there was sawhorses and plywood set up across the front yard. And, being in construction, we always had loose material around the house. And there was little rings and screws and bolts and just in a long line down that table. I said, what are you doing, son? He said, I'm rebuilding this transmission. Now, we're talking about a boy who was in special classes in school, special ed. He was special. So,
right. No, I remember those classes.
About 3 weeks went by and he had that transmission back together, put new parts in it, and it was running great. He repainted it himself, and next thing I knew, there is a car lot not far from where we live. When he kept that car till he got 17, got his driver's license. He drove that car down to that car lot, and the owner of that car lot bought that car from him for an extreme amount of money. I said, okay, you can do it. And that's what I try to tell other people, you can do it. And where was I going with this? I don't know where I was going with it. My goal is to get you where you didn't need me. You don't need me. I don't want my children never not to need me, but I want to get them to be able to stand greater than I ever thought I could. I tell people in church, I tell people who come to me for counseling, people that's going through stuff. I don't want the words to come out of my mouth saying, you can't make it. You can make it. I'm about to preach, Jerry. If you want to take up an offering here in a minute, that'd be all right. You can make it. The Creator has designed in every one of our paths good and evil, pleasant and unpleasant. We can choose to walk the pleasant and the good path. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to run into situations on that pleasant and good path that may not be pleasant and good. Everybody understand? There's going to be choices you got to make continuously. You just have to continue. You can make it.
And sometimes to get to the good contains the hardest choices.
Contains the hardest choices. I guess I said all that to say our job is to present the Creator to you where he can be revealed to you. You can see him and you won't have to keep coming around trying to get somebody else to pray things off you or pray you through something. Bob, now listen, if you need information, Bob can give you information. Go ahead, Terry. I just had to throw that in.
You know, as you were talking, and as what I read tonight, I something came to my mind that I didn't get in when the first time I read what I read tonight, or the second or third time I've read it, because I've gone over this a couple of times. Is the difference? Look at this. Is the difference? I never thought about this until you said what you just said. Noah walked with God, yet failed in collective responsibility. But Abraham had collective responsibility, and God said, walk before me. You see what I'm saying? It was like Noah was there walking with God, close enough to have his hand, but he didn't go out on his own with collective responsibility. But God told Abraham, get out there in front of me, go, because you can do it.
Yeah.
And the collective responsibility is walking before God, not with God. I'm not saying walking with God is not right. We all want to walk with God, but the higher level between walking with God and walking before him is walking before him, because you're walking in that, what you were talking about. You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it. You can walk before me. You can live upright. You can live righteously, and you can be not only righteous for yourself, but collectively responsible with everybody around you. That was, I didn't get that until you said what you were saying there, that, you know, there's like what Pesach told us. He said, there's going to come a time that you're going to have less and less questions for me to discuss as you grow. Because now, instead of walking with Pesach, our teacher, as we did for years, now we walk before him, and he's there for us when
we know he's there.
And when we need him, because there's like here the other day, I got to talk to him for about 45 minutes. I said, I got some stuff I want to talk about. And now it's kind of the difference in, it's like, well, I miss my little girls. I miss my little girls and their ponytails and patter feet going across the floor. I miss that. But I love my adult children. The relationship I have with my adult children, I wouldn't give up for anything in this world, because we can, go out, we can eat. My youngest daughter, she's the manager over at Tremont over there. We come over there and we sit down, and she brings me a cold beer, and we talk as she's working, and we go up to my youngest daughters or my eldest daughters with the grandbaby. We have conversations as adults. We go do adult, things together, and weekends with our kids. I miss my little girls that I walked with, but the two young gals became two awesome women that walked before their dad is amazing. And I think that's what God wants with us.
So I need to reiterate something, because somebody said something over here. Just because we're talking about, if you walk the good and you get blessings and stuff, again, I want to say it has not been easy. There's a lot of things, a lot of decisions. I have not always made the right decision. As this boy that I'm training now on the job, I thought that was right. I thought that was the right thing to do until I found out it was wrong. In construction, I was telling him how to wire a receptacle in, and I said, the first thing you do is make sure there's no power on that thing, because I thought I could do it until I found out I was wrong. So you make sure there's no power on it. But anyway, there's the reason I know things is because I've made some mistakes.
We learn more from our mistakes than we do our successes.
So
Not to
that's
say that making mistakes is important. It's just make sure if you make a mistake, we need to learn from.
yeah. I don't want to take that test again. I don't want. There's a reason that this is shiny. I don't know if any of you realize that, but there's a reason that that's shiny. One of my sons, my oldest son David, asked me one time. He said, "Dad, how do you know how to do all this?" I said, "Well, it's not that I actually know how to do this. I can tell you 10,000 ways how not to do that, because I done went through those too." So somebody said, "Well, y'all sound like it. This path you're on is the greatest and all." It is great.
It is really great. To be honest with you, it's amazing the relationship I have with God, and now the relationship I'm trying to build with others around them. Where I grew up in, I'm going to call it secluded religions, where we stayed away from those that's in the world, quote. And granted, there are people you need to stay away from. I'm not saying run out and become best friends with the local drug dealer, but there's a lot of people that are around us that we can learn things from.
Yes.
But in that path to get to where I'm at, I've gone through, I wish I had known the song, "If you're going through hell, walk through it like you own it." I wish I had known that song when I was going through hell.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's been several times in my wife and I's personal life that our best friends, who we thought was our best friends and top of the world, stabbed us so hard in the back as part of this path. One time, my wife and I, and basically, not saying we laid there for a whole month, but for over a month, we laid in the bed, bawling our eyes out, telling God to leave us alone. We're tired. We're done with it. We're done with you. We know you're there, but leave us alone. We were hurt. We got stabbed one time so bad by people we were the closest to. It's sometimes these things you got to go through. It's there to teach you something. But it's not, like Sky said, it's not all been, tiptoe through the roses and the tulips. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to do like that song, "While you're going through hell, walk through like you own it." And sometimes you just got to do that, even though at that time I didn't know the song, or I would have stiffed my back instead of cried all month long. But we got so hurt, we did literally for about a month. We begged God to leave us alone. And every time he in my words, "Well, if you're done with that, now let's get on and do this." And then there's something greater going.
Yeah.
I'm like, "I told you to leave me alone." He's not a good listener. When you tell God to leave you alone, he don't listen very well.
Yeah. So I've got to go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I said, and you grow to learn. Thank you for not listening to us.
Yeah. So I got a question from somebody here, and I brought up the term society a few minutes ago, and so this question: society has problems, such as abortion. I never killed a baby. How do I relate to society responsibility regarding this?
And that is an amazingly excellent question. One that's probably difficult. It's one of those you have to really probably discuss it for a little bit. What do you think, Scotty?
I knew you,
because when the society is doing wrong like that, we can learn some things from Rabbi Hirsch in his discussion with what he calls the righteous man of Sodom, Abraham's righteous man, what that person would have looked like, what that person would have been doing in his society. There's some things in there. It's sometimes there are people in our society who stands up against the wrongs of society. And that's a hard thing to do because the way our societies are right now, those are deemed the evil people who stand for the right. So how do you relate to social responsibility? Well, social responsibility, just on one aspect of that, would be you would have to stand up against the wrongs. Because people didn't stand up against the wrongs, the flood came. Because people didn't stand up against the wrongs, the hellfire and brimstone came on Sodom. And not enough people stood up and fought for the good. And sometimes that's just a hard thing to do. That's something I question myself, how to socially be, responsible and guarding. And I'm just not going to say just the abortion, but just the evils of our society in general. I've talked to the Creator quite a bit about that, because it's that mountain that looks like we don't have an opportunity to even make a dent in moving. How do we do that? How do we fight these big mountains? And the biggest thing is, there's easy answers too, starting with the little things, starting with the little communities and things. But you can't help for looking at at least for me, when I look at the ills around me, even at my job, the things that I see that are just the evil things that goes on, the greed, the theft, and when you look at your responsibility regarding dealing with these ills and evils of society, this is where it takes a lot. And one of the things that keeps coming to me here lately over the last probably month and a half, seems like every time I turn around, I keep running on the subject, no matter what it is. And when I've started this study that we've been in, I keep coming to the subject of mindfulness.
That's what I want to talk about here when you get through.
I keep, every book I open, there will be a sentence, there will be something about mindfulness. And so I've actually gone on and saved a couple of websites that actually have some blogs, have some websites on learning how to be mindful, how to meditate, how to take time. It's like, even, I'm wanting to learn how to smoke a pipe. I've always wanted to all my life. And I've started, I've gotten a couple of estate pipes from an antique store, and I've restored 2 of them, and it's fun. Well, not restored, actually refurbished, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought, man, this is fun, because I've always worked with my hands, and I don't do a lot now other than typing. So here I'm sanding and polishing and cleaning, and I was watching. I caught 2 videos one Saturday. I was sitting and watching videos on smoking a pipe from these expert guys. And these 2 separate guys, 2 different programs, was talking about the purpose of mindfulness in smoking pipe, because it actually, smoking pipe reduces blood pressure, because if you don't have 30 minutes to smoke a bowl, don't fire it up. You need 30 to 45 minutes to smoke a bowl, to sit there, to contemplate, to read, to pray. One of the guys, he actually prays. This one times when he smokes pipe, he does a lot of prayer. Another guy does self-reflection on self-improvement, where he reflects upon his day before, what he didn't do right, how he didn't treat somebody at work right. He reflects on that. He's going through these books teaching on. So every time I turn around here, I was watching videos and learning how to, pack and fire up a bowl, and they were talking about mindfulness. Three of the guys I was watching, who are like major experts in that thing, all spoken about the importance of mindfulness. And I'm like, wow, in every direction here in the last couple of months, whether I'm reading spiritual material or I'm wanting to learn how to smoke a pipe, the subject of mindfulness is like thrown at me. So go ahead, Scotty.
So I'm going to give advice right here. Cultivate your compassion. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. When you cultivate compassion is not just feeling sorry for somebody. That's not compassion. Compassion is putting yourself in their place. If you've never felt, let's take somebody hungry, somebody that hasn't eaten in a couple of days. If you've never felt what your stomach feels like when you have not eaten in a couple of days, and you watch people walk around you eating stuff and throwing away, what they don't want. And the whole time you're so hungry you would eat rotten food. Compassion, true compassion, causes you to feel what they feel. Someone being naked, they got a few rags, but they're considered in society, they're naked. The shame of being naked and having to walk in society, and that's all you have is a torn shirt, torn pants, maybe not even that. If you don't know what it feels like to have that feeling, let's say you've lost a loved one. We've all lost loved ones, but that there's a compassionate thing that happens to us, that we become connected to other people that lose loved ones. We have to feel that. We have to cultivate our compassion. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, it will make you more aware of your surroundings. Number two, it will make you not judge somebody so quick. A lot of times people see somebody, we're acquainted right now with somebody who is a double amputee. They've lost their legs. They lost their legs through, I don't want to call it addiction. I want to call it drug dependency. And I was talking to somebody about this person the other day, and they said, well, they did it to themselves. I don't feel sorry for them. They did it to themselves. You don't know the history of that. You can't judge that. You can't put yourself in that position. I understand you're just looking at the normal eye, but with compassion, until you've actually heard the story and been there and saw it, compassion tells you, I don't care how they got here. The issue is they are here, and I'm here to help them come out of it because I feel compassion. We counseled someone. I'm going to try to say this without crying. I just want to be humble as I say this. We had an opportunity to counsel a young lady who had an abortion. It's one thing to say, okay, we believe in abortion. I'm not going to pro or con on this right now. I'm not going to preach pro or con on this because that's not the discussion. The discussion is how you talk to society. So we're talking to this young girl. She's in her 20s. She had an abortion. Because that's what society said. Okay, that's what you can do. You're going to ruin your life if you have this baby. Now she's dealing with night terrors. Boy, it's quiet in this room. Now she's dealing with night terrors. She's dealing with what ifs. What did I do? Regardless of what society is doing around you, regardless of what society thinks or believes or stands on, there's somebody, if you get caught up in fighting society, you're going to miss somebody that's hurting. And if you cultivate your compassion, those are the ones you need. Should we fight battle? Yeah. If you feel religiously and politically bound to fight certain societal beliefs, by all means, go do that. But don't miss the opportunity. Don't get so caught up in the hatred of society affairs that you miss the little woman walking down the street by herself, living in a house with no power. You've not investigated it. She's eating food that sat in there for months, and she has to just pick off of it. you missed the opportunity to have compassion and say, wonder where she's going. Wonder what she's going through. Just here sometime a while back. I'm going to get back to the little girl that on the abortion thing. But we had this little lady that we saw walking all the time. And one day I felt this compassionate push. Compassion will cause you to be like it'll magnetize you. You'll find yourself drawn to people that any other time you wouldn't be drawn to them. She lives right down the street from me. Lived here for 20 years. Saw that lady living down there. Never thought about seeing what was going on. Saw a sign in her front yard. I seen her walk by the house going to the little store over here. Always walking by herself. Had a car sitting down there. And so I saw a sign sitting in her front yard one day and says, if you don't mow this yard, we're going to come mow it and we're going to charge you. You know how they do that. You know, they come and cut your grass and charge you a couple $1,000s. And so I got a hold of a couple of different, I'm going to tell you, I got a couple of different churches here. I said, well, we need to do something. Got a hold of a neighbor. We went down, we mowed her grass, started working on her house. Come to find out, she had no power in the house for over a year. No food in the refrigerator or the cabinets. She lives where people roam the streets every day, knocking on doors. Let me invite you to our worship center. Boy, it's quiet in here. And so this couple that goes to a church right down the road, they suddenly felt compassionate. We're gonna get her stuff in here. Well, the leader of their establishment said she doesn't go down here. We just need to focus on the people that come to our building. She said, no, we're going to take upon ourselves. We're going to cook this person food. Well, so after you cook food, you sit down there. Well, I've talked to that couple that's taken that over now. And there were several of us that got together and went down and done some things, but find out she was a widow. And after her husband passed away, her money was stolen from her by loved ones. They never did like her. She's sitting down there by herself. There it was. Been down there for a year. Her husband passed away 2 years. During this time, it's been about 4 years now, 5 years. And nobody had cultivated compassion enough. Now I see this couple that's taking care of her. Now they're taking care of all of a sudden they're taking care of the compassion got cultivated in them, and they're looking for people just like her. They're out looking. They're knocking on doors deliberately to look for people like that. Compassion. That's so okay. I hope I'm not boring you too much with talking about this. So the little girl we talked to, now in her 20s, I call her a little girl because after you get so old, everybody's honey, you know. So here a few months ago, this gentleman I was kind of helping take care of, and he's gone on now, but he was retired Marine Corps, you know, and he still had his flat top haircut. That's what he had, and he got to where he couldn't get up and nothing by himself. And his wife called me, and, you know, he's in his 80s, and his wife called and said, they just live a little bit away from us. I can't get him up to, clean him up or whatever. And I went out there, I got my arms around him, and I said, okay, you just hold on to me. We're going to stand up. And I stood him up, and I was holding him. And he said, I'm falling. I said, no, you're not, honey. I got you. So you get in that mode. And so all of a sudden he got real quiet. And so we took a couple steps back together, and his wife cleaned up his chair and got him some clothes on, and I backed him back up and set him back down. And he looked at his wife and said, "Did he call me honey?" And I said, "Yeah, baby, but we'll discuss that later." So after that, we had this camaraderie going. And I'm going to get back to I'm taking a lot of time here. I'm
Go
going to
ahead, Scotty. Don't
So a couple of days went past that, and he called me and he said, "Listen, I need a handle put in my bathroom. I can't get up off my commode, and I need a handle." So I went over there and I helped him get in there. And I said, "I want to put it where you want it," and he showed me where he wanted it, and I got it attached and got it fixed. Got him back to his chair. I said, "Listen, now when you go use that thing, I want you to think about me." So that afternoon, I get a phone call from him, and I'm thinking, "Oh, what's happened?" I picked the phone and said, "Hey, Cliff, what's up?" He said, "I just want you to know I was thinking about you." So I had the privilege of doing his celebration of life. And I used those two stories I just told you, and there was people that never saw that side of him. I mean, he's a retired Marine Corps. He's just, they never saw, they didn't know they could call him honey. I got away with it, And so anyway, so here's this girl. She's did an abortion when she was a teenager. We're not going to talk about how she got here, but here she is. She gave the okay for the abortion. Okay. So how do we get her from here back into life? How do we get her from where she's at right now? And Joanne's coming in. I just love Joanne. She's
sweet.
Got a lot of insight. So here, I told her, I said, "Honey, here's what you have to do. I told her, I said, here's what we got to do. First of all, we got to get you talking about it. There's other people who are going through what you're going through. You can find those people and y'all talk about it together. Find the issues, find and help each other. I don't know. I can feel the compassion. I feel the hurt. I feel the emptiness. I see you in your position, but I don't know what it feels like." Guess where that girl is today? She's the leader of a group. Now, you may not like it. She's down at a Methodist church right down the street here. She don't go there, but she's the leader of a group that helps people who have had an abortion at early age to get over it and get through it. So we have to cultivate our compassion. She took her past and she brought people together, and now they're helping each other. And now that girl, she's married and she has a little boy. He's 3 years old. So, cultivate your compassion. Cultivating compassion will cause you to start helping people, and you'll be driving away from their house thinking, "How in the world did I get in this mess?"
I've been there on that.
Yeah. And you go right back. My wife and I was talking this morning as we was driving early. I took off from work today. You'll be happy to know, Terry, I took off from work today to take somebody.
I'm going to put that down on my calendar.
Okay.
We did that.
Took off work to take them or get them in touch to the doctor. And my wife and I we was traveling out there, and we was talking about how that many times we get put in these positions and we spend more time, helping that. What is this? And then we was driving back, and she said, "Well, I'm so glad we came out here."
It does a lot for you. I mean, we had a lady that when the church my wife and I grew up in, the congregation we went to in Nashville, we had a lady whose husband had passed away, who had had blood clots, and they went in and removed them, and then one popped back up in his leg and went to his heart and passed away. And they were in their 80s, and he married her after World War II. He built their house. He built their furniture. He built everything they had. He took care of her. He cooked. He cleaned. She did not know how to write a check. She did not know how to cook. She was in her 80s. She never had driven. And there were several of us families that got together to take care of her. She wanted to drive. She wanted to learn how to drive. And we're like, no. Miss Bishop, you're not 80 years old. It's not a good time to learn to drive, not in Nashville traffic. And so, but it was like one of those things you're like, but when you get involved, it's, I don't know, it does something to your own life. You know, my wife would, her part of our share, we'd take her shopping, you know, grocery shopping and stuff like that. Another guy came in, took care of her yard. Another family would help do other things. But we all divided up what she needed to help take care of her, because she absolutely, he loved her so much. He cherished the ground she walked on from the day they got married to the day he passed away. He took care of her. She didn't have to never cook anything. She said, our whole marriage, I never cooked a meal. He wouldn't let me, you know, and yeah, you have to have that compassion.
Yeah.
You find these people that need help.
So Amuela's, I think that's Amuel over here on the YouTube channel. And
hello, Amuela.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah, she brought up the word that sometimes this kind of things bring up words like selfishness. Am I wrong for thinking this way? And I think she's talking about, you know, some people not being compassionate, not being there for others, not understanding the plight or the hurt or the um, depression or the of others. You don't know. You may hold the door open for somebody that's stepping in, and step back and open the door and hold it for them and say, "Good morning. You go in before me." And this person might, you don't know what's going through that person might, and change their whole life for the day. Anyway, I've talked for over 30 minutes on this. Terry,
that's just fine.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think that's been up for a while. I think it was to do with what Terry was doing in the lesson, so I might even be referring back to Noach.
Oh, okay. I got you now. Yeah, I got you. I just looked over there and saw it. Talking about Noah not helping. I think that's what you're talking about, Ronald. Is that when it came up?
Yeah, I think that was my impression when I first saw it, because it was long before this discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Ronald.
So I think it's more relevant to Terry's lesson tonight.
Okay. Good deal. I miss you, Anuela, honey. I miss Yeoman Asher. So anyway, we're talking about society has problems such as abortion. I never killed a baby. How do I relate to social responsibility regarding this? Just be mindful of the people around you, and if you run into somebody, don't judge them. Don't judge them. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not going to get all in that again. I'm just going to leave it right there. And maybe in the next couple of classes, when we get into single text, we'll bring some of that up. But I have found that when you cultivate compassion, you're not so quick to judge what people are going through.
Scotty, would you be willing to teach a class on helping us learn how to?
Oh, wow.
Cultivate compassion. Before you leave, just that whole issue brought up my favorite psalm, and we'll flip over here to it real quick, because it got me to thinking. Let me find it real quick. Let's read this section of it right here in Psalms 145, my favorite favorite psalm. It is this is called the Ashrei. The Jewish people pray this at the minimum 3 times a day when they do the Pesach Desmarah, which is the songs of praise and stuff. But this right here, King David writes, I'm going to start in verse 7. The remembrance of your abundant goodness will they express, and of your righteousness will they sing for joy. In verse 8, gracious and compassionate is the Eternal, slow to anger and abundant in kindness. The Eternal is good to all, and his compassion is over all his creatures.
Wow. That's beautiful.
When you think about this, his compassion is over all his creatures, everything he's made, basically his creation. But think about it. His compassion is upon every human being, those who we may deem good and those who we may deem wicked. The fact that a wicked person wakes up in the morning, God's compassion is on him, or he wouldn't wake up.
Yeah.
His compassion is on everyone. If you wake up in the morning, God's compassion is on you. It says, gracious and compassionate is the Eternal, slow to anger and abundant in kindness. The Eternal is good to all, and his compassion is over all his creation. And it got me to thinking as you were talking about cultivating compassion. One of the things I'd studied in the past is, and I've got some material somewhere here amongst my meager library. Bob, he's showing up and showing out. I used to be big like that as well, but not as big. But is learning to. There's 13 aspects. We won't get into this. We can get into it another time. But there's 13 aspects of God that when Moses was. When he hid Moses in the cleft and he passed before him. We can go through that passage there in the Hebrew. There's so much there to learn. But the Torah sages teaches us that learning to emulate God's characteristics. And so right here, he's good to all, and his compassion is overall. And so when you're talking about cultivating compassion, my thought automatically went, how is God compassionate? So therefore, how can I learn from his compassion for me to have compassion? And you're a sensitive, compassionate person. It drips off of you. That's the reason why I said, could you teach us how to do it? But that's just something I wanted to leave food for thought that blends in with you. If God is compassionate over all of his creatures, how can we learn from his compassion, his goodness, that it says, his loving kindness? How can we learn from what he is doing toward his creation as being a part of his creation? How can we share that with others? I'm not talking about teaching others, but sharing goodness, sharing compassion to others. How do we emulate the Creator in this area you're talking about? For the rest of the those around us, our families. Like that couple you were saying that started out with that one lady. Now,
they got about 18 couples that they're taking care of now.
See, that's amazing. Not saying we all need to do that, and we're not all. And I'm just going to use this terminology because it's terminology we know. Not all of us are called to do that, but there is somewhere in there we all can participate in.
Yeah.
That's a good lesson you gave us tonight. Because what we're talking about tonight was Noah. His failure was in collective responsibility. And what you shared was being active in collective responsibility.
Somebody on here read, or I think you read it, Terry, or I heard Rabbi talk about it or something, that a story about this little girl was on the beach and she was picking up, I mean, hundreds of starfish and washed up.
Oh, I read that here the other day in something we were going through.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Said, you can't save them all, but
she picked up one and threw it back. She said,
but I saved the world for that one.
Yeah.
And that's where, the sages says to save a life is to save it's like to save the whole world. So you don't have to save everyone, but for someone, you just saved their world.
I can't help everybody, but we can help somebody.
We can help somebody.
Terry, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. So, okay.
Thanks for everyone for hanging on.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna close down for now. And thank you, Will. It's good to see Will. I forgot, I don't remember if I texted him and told him we was going to be down for a couple of weeks. I saw where he tried to come into the Zoom room, and I apologize, Will, for not giving you that information. But it's good to see you, Will, and it's good to see Joanna Wakeoff. I trust everything's going well with you up around your neck of the woods, and
they probably gonna get a lot of snow where she's at.
Yeah, I think they're going to get quite a bit up there. So. And Ronald, go ahead. Was you about to say something, Joanna?
Oh, I was just saying it's cold here.
It's cold, yeah.
It's cold. And they're calling for anywhere between 4 and 12 inches of snow. And it changes every hour.
Yeah.
Hey, Joanne, do you live over near Grandfather Mountain?
I'm probably about 40, 50 miles from Grandfather Mountain. I'm in Hendersonville, which is like 20 miles south of Asheville.
Okay. Is Grandfather Mountain still pretty much devastated?
And, I've not been up there. We haven't been traveling around and looking at all these places and to see exactly
every year they hold a large Scottish festival.
Mm-hmm.
We went to our first one here near where Scotty lives a couple of years ago. We were wanting to go this year to the Grandfather Mountain one because it's a big one.
When is it?
I don't know. I haven't heard. I follow the particular page. They've not said anything, and I didn't know if they were going to cancel it this year because of what happened or not. And I didn't know because we were really wanting to try to go because it's supposed to be a big one that they do.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know it was all devastated up through there, but and they've been trying to get of course, the parkway's closed now anyway because of the winter, but I don't know how bad it is up there. I just know that they had some devastation that direction that way, but we haven't even tried to venture down toward Lake Lure or Swannanoa, which were the two places close to me that were hit the worst, because just staying away, letting them do their thing. Letting them try to recuperate and get the roads back together.
Yeah, we were hoping if they were going to still have it, we were going to try to go, and I was going to let you know if we were going to be over there since we're going to be so close. I'd like to meet up with you.
That would be great. Yeah, I'd like that. We can meet up maybe in Asheville, somewhere around there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll keep a watch out on it. We'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, go ahead, Scotty.
All right. Well, I'll bring us to a close. Joanne, it's good to see you. Will and Ronald and Veronica and Bob and Terry. It's always good to see you all. It's always good to talk. And feel the love. I'll just say it like that. So everybody, have a great week. And if everything falls into play, we'll see you next week. So,
God willing.
All right. Talk to everybody later. Bye.
Bye-bye.